Okay, once again, welcome and thank you for joining us for the Perkins Q&A for the month of March 2021. The focus of this monthly Q&A is the completion of the Perkins V Risk Assessment. So as you guys begin to think of questions, you're welcome to go ahead and start typing those in the chat. As you do that, I will give you a brief overview of the purpose of the risk assessment, and I'll also give a brief overview of the assessment tool. And then we can have questions towards the end. Welcome, Michael. I was just welcoming everyone and letting them know that we would give them a brief overview of the purpose of the risk assessment, why we use that, and then I would share with them an overview of the template itself. Would you like to maybe share about the purpose behind the risk assessment tool, Michael?
Yeah, so thank you all for joining us today. And just as a reminder, neither Shannon or I or anybody at TBR is doing any of this to think, hey, let's give the colleges one more thing to do. That is totally the opposite of our thought process. Our thought process is to try to stay out of your business as much as possible, but also to assist you in what's federally required. And then also part of that is what the Tennessee Comptroller the requirements are from them as well in having these federal funds. So this particular report in of itself is one good reason why we had zero audit findings through the Tennessee Comptroller this year. Not us as in Shane and I, but you all, because of the dedication that you all have had. And these Q&A sessions and this particular report, and these is part of the process to make sure that you all don't have to repay any funds. So as much as Shane and I totally understand this is a small caveat this is a pin on one of the 12 hats that you wear is Perkins. But I understand the workload behind it sometimes feels like more of a dump truck than it does the pin that it is on one of those 12 hats. So we are very sympathetic in that respect, and that's why we appreciate your all's time, and we understand that the more questions you have is totally fine, because we are the experts and we'll answer those to the best of our ability to keep you all safe and out of trouble with Perkins dollars. So thank you all again for joining us.
Yes, thank you. So I'll share with you my screen so we can look at the template together. I've created a template for the community colleges and a template for the TCATs, but they're exactly the same. The only difference is I've added in the state determined levels of performance for community colleges and for TCATs, which are different. So that's the only difference in the two templates. So on the screen, you should see the template. Let me know if you cannot see it. This template is for a community college. So we start at the top with just entering in the community college's name. For the year, I know that last year there was a little bit of confusion, and maybe in years past as well. So I just went ahead and typed that in, that we're being assessed. We're assessing our college in the year 2021, but we're using 2020 data. So hopefully that cleared up some of the confusion. Whenever we get into section A, you will need your college's consolidated annual report data, your CAR data from December. If you, for some reason, don't have that, I know a lot of times your colleges, your IR folks will submit that directly to Chris Tingle in TBR's Office of Data and Research. So if the CAR report has somehow passed you up, let me know. Just send me an email and I can send you the copy that I have of your CAR. So here we're filling in the actual achievements for 1P1 retention and placement, 2P1 credential, certificate, or degree, and 3P1 non-traditional enrollment. And we're filling those in for the overall. So at the top of your CAR spreadsheet, you should see the overall for each of those indicators. That's what we're filling in here. 90% of the goal required. So if you remember for the UGG last month, we were looking at the full amount of the goal. For the risk assessment and for the CAR, we can look at just 90% of the goal. And those are automatically filled in already for you, so you don't have to worry about adding that. Whenever you add in your actual percentage achievements, column F will autofill with a yes or no. I hear a little bit of feedback. And then we're just looking for the populations that were not met. So these would be those individual populations of, if a certain race did not meet, if a certain special population, single parent, youth in foster care, youth with a parent in active military, if one of those specific populations did not meet, we're looking for that in the populations not met column. One thing to mention that I did not say in the technical assistance video is that if the population in that subcategory is less than 10, I believe it is, Michael, tell me if I'm wrong. If it's less than 10, we don't have to list that here.
You are correct.
Okay, that's what I thought. I should have put that in the TA video, but I did forget that. But maybe some of you all remember that from years past.
Could you say that one more time, please?
Yeah, sure. So under populations not met, let's say that single parents didn't meet 1P1 retention and placement, but there were only 6 parents identified on the CAR report. You wouldn't have to type in single parents right here because it's fewer than 10. And so we don't want, when it's fewer than 10, we don't want that to be identified. We don't want to single people out with that. Does that make sense? Yeah. But if the population, let's just say that, the race of Asian didn't meet and there were, 30 in that population, then we would list Asian here.
This is Boyd from Knoxville. Just
yeah.
So even if we meet the 90% required, we list.
Yes.
We list them all. So can we add rows right there, or we just? I mean, is it just listing the ones we didn't meet? Do we need to explain those?
No, you don't have to explain them here. So even if you make the 90% overall, but let's say Black, Asian, single parents, and youth in foster care did not meet 90%, it will be listed on your CAR. It'll have the yes and no, just like this does here. So if those 4 populations did not meet, even though the overall did, we would like to see those here. So instead of adding rows, what you can do is actually just drag that row height down and you'll be able to see it all there. And this is set up so that it will wrap the text, so it'll just keep wrapping around in that cell. Does that help?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, thank you for the question.
I
Any other questions on section A?
Yes, I just want to, so I'm looking at my CAR report and I'm looking at 3P1 and I see numerator, denominator. So I assume I'm looking at my denominator number for met 90% SDLOP. No, my Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander, but my denominator is only 2.
Okay.
So I assume that would not be.
So that would be one, yes. So that would be an example of one that you wouldn't have to list over here because we don't want to single out just those 2 students. So if it's less than 10 there, you don't have to list it.
But if it's 10 or more, yes, list it. Okay,
yes,
thank you.
Yes. Thank you for the question. Any other questions on section A? Okay, we'll move on. And if you think of something, put it in the chat or just interrupt me, that's fine. Section B is the percentage of the Perkins budget that was spent. So for fiscal year 2020, what percentage of your budget, if you were approved for $50,000, did you spend 100% or was it slightly less than that? Questions on section B?
Shanna, can you clarify that there are some colleges that actually don't spend their full amount?
Yeah, so there are numerous colleges that don't spend their full amount for whatever reason. So the way we have the risk analysis score set up, if your college spends less than 90%, you're given a point on the risk assessment. So you kind of don't want that. You know, you want to spend all the available funds that you have that you've been approved for. If you spend between 90 to 100%, there are no points added for the purpose of this risk assessment. And then if you spend over 100%, that would have to be approved through us anyway. So that's.
And by the way, the reasoning for that, thank you, Shannon, for that explanation, is that the state comptroller's office does see that as a reason for potential not being able to manage your budget correctly if you don't spend within 90 to 95% of your actual budget. Simply because, as we all know, we're looking for dollars left and right. And here is somewhat free dollars that if we don't spend those and we're not managing our budget correctly, then that could be a sign of not understanding how to correctly spend those dollars. So that's why that's part of that as well. Pardon me.
Thank you. Okay, section C. This is one where we typically get some questions on what audit are we looking at? Which audit do we use? So this was listed or explained in the technical assistance video, but let's talk through it again and then you let us know if you have any questions. So there are different audits over Perkins. The one that has priority would be if there were a full Perkins audit conducted by the state of Tennessee for your college. If there were a full Perkins audit, that would be priority number 1. If not, if there's a partial Perkins audit by the state that has findings, that would be priority 2. And priority 3 would be the Tennessee Comptroller's Office audit. And this is for community colleges. TCATs have a different audit through TBR System Office. But for community colleges, that's kind of your order of priority. Questions about year of last audit or which audit do I use?
Shayna, I have a question. Since I'm brand new to this, how would I know? Because I know the website you gave in the video was for the state comptroller's office, is what I understood. How would we know if we had a full Perkins audit or a partial Perkins audit prior to us coming on board?
That's a great question. Michael, do you have an answer for that?
For those who are new, Amy, basically, if you don't know the answer to that question, you can just reach out to Shayna and I, and we can answer that for you.
Okay. If it happens to be that you're looking at the Tennessee Comptroller's Office website that I did include in the technical assistance video, you can look back at that video and I give you step-by-step instructions on how to get to your college's most recent audit. And basically you're copying and pasting in those findings at the beginning of the report under audit highlights. And again, if you need to look back at that TA video, I walk you through it step by step on how to find that. Any other questions on section C? No. Okay, section D. There are 3 cells here to complete. So the first one is the Perkins coordinator at your college, your name here. The start date as Perkins coordinator. So you may have been with the college for 15 years, but you just started as the Perkins coordinator a year ago. We're looking for that date. So the start date that you were given the glorious responsibilities of Perkins coordinator on your campus. And then from that start date, the number of years that you've served as the Perkins coordinator. So it could be 0, you know, if you just started in the fall. The number of completed years is what we're looking for. Questions on section D?
Shayna, I would add that for some of these folks that as this responsibility is added to your plate, you may not have the exact date like October the 5th. You can simply put the 1st of that month, say October 1st, because that's more, you know, the actual date itself is less important than knowing that you've been doing Perkins for 15 years or you've been doing it for 6 months. So if you don't have the exact date, you can put the first date of the month that you know that you started that process.
Thank you.
Question,
Yes.
either one of you.
Yes.
So I was Perkins coordinator, and then I wasn't, and now I am again.
Okay. Michael, can we count? I mean, I don't know how long it's been in between your role as Perkins coordinator. Can we count all of those years combined together?
How long was there in between there?
I think it was 3 to 5 years I wasn't. After 3 to 5 years of doing it.
Yeah, that would probably be best to do, especially since we've got a new Perkins as well. So let's just count from your most recent add-on.
Thank you for that question. That's a good one. I think we have at least one other person in that same situation. Section E, this is the date the institution was last monitored, so not audited, but monitored for Perkins funding. So what we'd like to see here is the last date that the institution was monitored on site. You all know, if you've been with Perkins very long at TBR, we monitor every year, and we have 4 levels of monitoring. The level 1 is desk monitoring, level 2 is self-assessment, level 3 is virtual monitoring, and level 4 is an on-site monitoring, or you could call it a full monitoring. If you're not aware of the last on-site, you could list, you know, in 2020 we did level 3 virtual. In 2019 we did level 2 self-assessment. But if you know the last date of the full on-site, you could list that date there.
And if we have no idea, do we email you and Michael?
Sure. Yes. I have a record for at least the last 2 to 3 years. And Michael might have records farther back than that, but I can at least get you the last couple of years for sure. Okay. The risk analysis score will be automatically calculated based on the information you input in the yellow cells throughout the spreadsheet. We're just asking that you fill in who completed the assessment and the date. There is a second tab within the workbook which explains how the scores are calculated. So it lists possible scores for each section, and it gives you an explanation of how the scores are calculated for each section. Basically, this is one of the tools that we use in determining monitoring and what level of monitoring is necessary for your college. And it gives you a little chart at the bottom. This spreadsheet, or this workbook, used to be 3 worksheets, and I condensed it down to 2, so it's all contained here on the second sheet. Okay, what questions do you have? I'm going to go back so I can see the chat. I don't know if there's anything in there or not. No questions? I know we've had a few throughout, which thank you for bringing those up, because that's the whole purpose of this, is to, watch the technical assistance video and review the template at the beginning of the month, and then come to us in the middle of the month with any questions you have. Okay. Well, if there are no questions, you are free to go, and Michael and I can stick around for just a minute in case anybody wants to just have a one-on-one conversation. But thank you again for joining us. I hope you've learned something. I hope it's been somewhat helpful for you, and enjoy the rest of your day.